We are 1 week away from the 2024 election. Most polls concur that Donald Trump has been right. The border crisis is the second biggest issue of concern to Americans. The 48th state to join the union, Arizona, known as the Grand Canyon state, is in play. It's what those of us in politics call a battleground state. Voters could decide the fate of who sits in the White House. There's a major Senate race going on between a progressive squad member and a Republican. They've also got many heated congressional contests, along with 13 statewide ballot measures that cover topics from term limits to abortion to crime. So I decided to bring a great patriot who hails from Arizona, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County, Arizona, onto today's episode of Rally for the Republic. Sheriff Lamb has the pulse of his state and a deep knowledge of the border crisis that's on the mind of most voters. I'm Bryan Rudnick, your host of Rally for the Republic. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll dive into a conversation with one of America's greatest patriots, America's Sheriff, Mark Lamb.
This is a battle cry for the American way of life and a relentless pursuit of truth and justice. It comes from a voice with unmatched experience and unyielding resolve. Join us as we dissect current events and tip the scales in your favor. This is Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
If you believe in law and order in this nation, if you've been following the conservative movement, then my guest needs no introduction. He's been a lawman in the great state of Arizona for more than a decade. He's been leading on the front lines of our nation's border crisis. Our guest has authored several books, and he's got a well-known YouTube show called Fridays with Frank, which is a must-watch. Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County, Arizona, thank you for joining Rally for the Republic today.
Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate it. And I used to introduce myself as Sheriff Lamb, but now I'm Frank's boss. Frank has become far more popular than even I have been able to achieve. So, but yeah, look, it's all about trying to promote the law enforcement and promote America, and that's what we've done. And fortunately, you realize there's a lot of like-minded Americans out there. But thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for finding the time. I know you're a very busy man. And if you'll just tell the Rally for the Republic listeners a little bit about your career in law enforcement and your experiences prior to becoming sheriff.
Yeah, absolutely. I never grew up wanting to be a cop. I was a businessman. I was raised in Hawaii, then the Philippines, then here in Arizona, which is where my dad was from. Family was pioneers of Arizona. And then I moved to Panama, then Argentina. So I've spent a lot of time outside the country, but what it did was develop a deep love for it. I went on one ride along at 33 years old, and that was it. Boom, I was hooked. I woke up, saw some guy get roughed up. We're looking for some guy, help find him. And we don't have a ton of time, so I won't tell the whole story. But I came home that morning and woke up my wife, and I said, honey, I'm going to be a cop. And 6 months later, I was in the academy on my way, and I started my career in a Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, and loved it. It's right, kind of nestled right in between Mesa, Scottsdale, and Tempe. And honestly, it was a great start to my career. But then after a while, it was under the Obama administration. I could just see I didn't like the direction of the country, and I thought that law enforcement needed a different style of leadership. I thought they needed true leadership. And so instead of being the guy that complains, I decided to run for sheriff. Families, finances, everything on the line, slid all my chips into the center of the table, and went after the sheriff of Pinal County, Arizona, and the office, and was fortunate enough to win in 2016 and took office in this January 1st of 2017. And here I am in my 8th year, and I love it. And it's given me the opportunity to really change the way leadership is seen in this profession, but also at the same time, trying to protect the rule of law in this country, because I think that is the backbone of America. You don't have to look any further than the preamble of the Constitution when our founding fathers gave the first charge of the Constitution. It wasn't in the Bill of Rights. It wasn't in the Articles. It was actually in the preamble when they said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. And to this day, I still continue to fight for justice. And whether it's the border, whether it's crime in my community, whether it's just being that peacekeeper that the sheriff has been elected to be, that's what we try to do every day. So it's an honor to be part of it.
Well, you've done an amazing job, and obviously the people recognize that. And You just mentioned about law enforcement being peacekeepers. So let's focus on that for a moment. Obviously, throughout your tenure as sheriff, we've had to deal with the defund movement. We've had to deal with the left telling people to disrespect police officers. How's that impacted your day-to-day, the morale of the men and women who serve underneath you, and what you're seeing in Arizona?
Well, what we've done in Pinal County is not only have we created a safe haven for those who want constitutional rights protected. That's what we do. Our job is to protect your constitutional rights. We protect you from the bad guys too, but we want you to be free. And so what that's done is attracted a lot of citizens into my county who want to feel free and live in the America that we love. But I've also created that environment in my workforce, and my guys like coming to work. They even though the rest of the country is kind of unstable, we've been able to create an opportunity to really do police work here. We still chase you. We still do all the things that cops want to be able to do. That's what makes the job, rewarding. And so we've been able to do that. We've created a good work environment here, and our people like to work here. When you get outside of that and the other locations where they're more concerned about what the mob wants to say. They're more concerned about the pitchforks and the torches, that they don't actually do what they should be doing in law enforcement. And so we've been able to, I guess the answer is we've been able to maintain it here, but we see what's going on outside of it. And we work hard every day to keep that from permeating its way into our county and our sheriff's office.
And you clearly are not somebody who is soft-spoken. So you've taken some very vocal positions about the COVID lockdowns and mandates. You've, just like you mentioned, have been at the forefront of fighting to protect constitutional rights. I think most Americans are used to hearing almost the opposite rhetoric from law enforcement officials. So what caused you to really want to speak out and be at the forefront of this fight?
I don't know that anything caused me. I'm just a patriot who loves God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And I'm a true conservative, constitutional conservative. And a conservative has principles and values. And when you have principles, you don't deviate from those. That's integrity. And honor is doing what's right no matter what the consequence is. So the integrity is, hey, these are my principles. Honor is, I'm going to do it no matter what the consequence is. And I would say that it's not that I've really done anything special other than stand up for what I believe in. And society is veering from that. It's veering away from God. It's veering away from the Constitution. It's veering away from freedom. It's veering away. And all I'm doing is saying, no, we're not going that direction. And it's put me in the limelight, and I don't think that I did anything special other than stand up for what I was expected to stand up for, which is the people's constitutional rights for God, family, freedom, guns. And I've done it, and I've done it in a way that I'm unapologetic about it. And it comes off as being bold. It comes off as being somebody who's bucking the system. But I've always told people, look, when they hear me talk, they say, well, Sheriff, you're the government. And I said, hold on, I'm not the government. I'm your county sheriff. My job is to protect you from the bad guys and to protect you from government overreach. And I feel like that's what we've done here at the sheriff's office. I took an oath. I swore an oath on the Bible to protect and defend the Constitution, to protect my people. And I feel like it was important to me to honor that oath. And that is what I've done. To me, what is surprising is that the media and the other politicians are not holding each other to account or themselves to account. They're not following their oath they took for the people, and I do. And so for me, it wasn't like rocket science. For me, it was common sense, and it was expected because that's what I swore an oath to.
And I appreciate that. I'm sure people in Pinal County appreciate that. And you've been, taking a strong position upholding Second Amendment rights. As you said, you're a constitutional conservative. It sounds like you're a man who was molded like our founding fathers. So a lot of people are used to hearing law enforcement not being so supportive of the Second Amendment. Why do you feel it's necessary that they know that you're a strong supporter of the Second Amendment?
So one of the things that I like to do is I go out and still work with my guys. I work all the time, and one of the things I've become known for is doing these videos about driving in the left lane. As a matter of fact, we won an Emmy Award for one of the videos we did about driving in the left lane. No camping in the left lane. It's a pet peeve for a lot of Americans. And frankly, it's against a traffic, it's a criminal. It's not a criminal. It's a civil traffic violation. And so when I pull people over, oftentimes people have seen me on video, and I don't do this just for the video. I ask people every time, do you have any drugs in the car? No. Do you have any weapons in the car? No. And I'll say, why not? You should. It's dangerous out there. I mean, look, I am a stalwart believer and supporter of the Second Amendment. I think that the founding fathers were very, very clear. Like they couldn't have been, they were the most clear about the Second Amendment, yet somehow our government politicians have managed to screw that up. And they've managed to try to figure out what the founding fathers meant. Let me tell you what the founding fathers meant. They meant you're allowed to have guns in case we have another tyrannical government. That's what they wanted. And that's why I'm a stalwart defender and supporter of it. And I always will be. This is the only reason we're not like the rest of the world. The only reason our government, and listen to me now, the only reason our government has not run roughshod over us is because of the fact that the citizens of this country are armed. And if we weren't armed, they would have taken this country from us years ago. And so I will always defend that, and I'm unapologetic about it. And it's not good people that hurt people. It's bad people that hurt people. It's not the guns. Guns are an inanimate object. For you to blame a gun would be silliness. Anybody who does is silly, because an inanimate object is incapable of hurting somebody unless there is somebody with bad intentions behind the trigger, or good intentions in most cases, save people. They don't ever talk about that. So I will always be a supporter of it. I think there's far more people that save their lives and save other people's lives every year because of Second Amendment than lose their lives. Yeah, I don't know if most people know. There's only about 400 deaths a year, murders a year that are committed, about 450 that are committed with a rifle. And yet they're hell-bent on taking away our right to own AR-15s, which they erroneously call assault rifles. That's not what it stands for.
I don't know if you saw the video or pictures the other day in Missouri when former Congressman Adam Koontz went there to support Josh Hawley's Democrat opponent, and they were shooting an AR-15 7 feet away from a steel target, and the reporter got hurt. So I've decided there's a new call for gun control. It should be take guns out of the hands of Democrats.
As much as I'd like to say that, I can't, because I'm a Second Amendment guy. That was a trick question, Brian. You tried to put me.
No, it's just a joke. But I apologize if it came across that.
I know.
So, but let me ask you, because you brought something up that. Sorry, please finish.
No, I was just going to say, I know it's a joke, and that was my joke too. But in all honesty, even the idiots, I'm still here to defend their right. Because that's what we need, is people that actually defend the rights, and they don't find reasons to take away the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or the Fourth Amendment because it's convenient or because it gives government more power. I just won't do it.
So, being a week away from the election, there's all these stories coming out. I'm sure you heard. The left is, wanting to call Donald Trump Hitler and a fascist and every other negative title they can throw at him, every pejorative. And the media is coming out with these stories about the threats to our democracy that are anticipated pre and post election. Are you hearing anything about that on a law enforcement level? Is the federal government, Homeland Security, coming to you with concerns?
Well, they've been saying it for a while, but guess who was telling them before that? Us. We were telling them because of the border issue, which, by the way, I'm going to do a little Trump weave here. The only reason the border is not the number one issue in polls is because they're not polling people about the border. They're polling people about immigration. When you poll about it, this is a trick they use. The media uses it. The government uses it. They ask you about immigration, so the economy becomes higher than the immigration. But we're not talking about immigration as much as we're talking about border security. If you were to boil it down and ask people about border security, no doubt border security would be number one, closely followed by the economy. FBI has been talking about it at sheriff's conferences. The DHS has been talking about it. I think everybody should be concerned about threats to our country, certainly threats to our republic. I cannot stand it when they refer to it as a democracy, because we are not. We are a constitutional republic. And for those who don't know the difference, democracy becomes mob rule. Whoever has the loudest voice gets their way, and that's not what our founding fathers gave us. They wanted a constitutional republic, which means that your voice in the middle of Kansas in a small town has the same impact as somebody who lives in New York City or Los Angeles or anywhere else in the country. I think our constitutional republic is in trouble because we have failed to secure our southern border, and we have our own government who has actually been an enemy to the constitutional republic. and they're doing it under the guise of trying to protect a democracy. What they're doing is driving us into socialism. And the reason why they call people names is when you're losing an argument, because they can't win this argument, Bryan. They can't win on the border. They can't win on the economy. They can't win on the fact that they want to take the life of unborn children all the way up to 9 months. They cannot win on any of these arguments. And so what do? They resort immediately. And these are the rules for radicals by Saul Alinsky. When you are not winning, start to call people names, call them racist, call them fascist. If you didn't know anything about what a fascist is, they actually qualify as a fascist far before. I mean, a conservative, constitutional conservative is the antithesis of a fascist. But what their actions have done is more fascist than anything. But they resort to name calling. They do it to me all the time. When they start to lose conversations, immediately they just go to name calling, and they hope that everybody in the mob will start to call you names too, so that everybody else thinks, "Ooh, he's a pariah. He's crazy." No, you cannot be afraid. That Jordan Peterson, I'll leave it and I'll throw it back to you after this. Jordan Peterson has a great quote. He says, "You have to have faith in the redeeming power of truth," and that's what I've lived by. I have faith in the redeeming power of truth, and I don't fall into their little antics of calling me names because I stand up for what's right and common, sensical. So yeah, we have to have faith in the redeeming power of truth as Americans. But certainly, going back to your question, yes, we should all be very concerned about the vulnerability that our country has, our elections have, our grid system has, because of the amount of military-age men we've let into this country, and frankly, because of our own government.
You are listening to Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
Just to provide a little more context before we dive into some other topics, how many civilian and sworn officers work underneath your command?
So we have 600 plus employees. We have about 240 sworn deputies right now. We have a jail that has 1,500 beds. Our daily population is probably 550 to 600. But our county is the size of the state of Connecticut. For anybody living on the East Coast listening today, we're 5,400 square miles. So we cover the area the size of the state of Connecticut. And that's what we're responsible for. We have about 500,000 people that live in our county. We're the third largest county population-wise. And to tell you where we're at on the map, we're between Phoenix and Tucson, everything in between there. And what makes Arizona, or what makes Pinal County very important, even though we're not on the border, we are one county off. But we are 52 miles off the border on the southern end, where there's an Indian reservation that actually runs into Mexico. And then we also have the I-10, which is the main, that's the smuggler's highway. That's where they smuggle the people and the drugs into this country. And if we don't stop what came in across the southern border, whether it's coming out of the desert or on our highways, they have to come through Pinal County to get to Phoenix. And so,
can you give the Rally for the Republic listeners a little context on the difference in support you've received from the Trump administration to the Biden administration?
Night and day. I just did an interview with News Nation yesterday, and I said that to her, and she goes, "Well, what do you mean? Can you give us some examples of the night and day difference?" Yeah, it started immediately. I mean, I'm talking January 21st, January 22nd, we started to see the change. What we saw under President Trump was we were moving in the right direction. We were actually moving towards securing our border. We saw some of the lowest numbers, and to the point where my anti-smuggling unit, who is responsible for stopping all the smuggling, they came to us and said, "Sheriff, you're not going to disband the unit, right? I promise you, we're trying to find them, but we're just having troubles finding them." So we were having a lot of success because the previous administration worked with the local law enforcement. The sheriffs had a seat at the table. I don't know that this administration, Bryan, has met with a single sheriff as of yet. And so whether they're Republicans, Democrats, I don't think they've met with a single sheriff.
None of you were on Kamala's tour at the border?
No, I didn't. I was out of town, but I wouldn't have gone anyway. They didn't invite me. They don't want people that are going to tell them what the truth is. They didn't want that. They want to create this little pocket that she can continue to roam around in that tells her that she's doing okay. The American people are wise to this fact that she's not doing okay. They failed on the border. They failed on the economy. They failed in Afghanistan. They have failed on a global level to the point where Russia invaded Ukraine. China's threatening to invade Taiwan. We've got Israel that became a victim of all the terrorism that we had worked so hard to eliminate. all that came about under this administration. I hope that Americans stop and really take account for what has happened over the last 4 years. And at the border, let me just give you these last statistics, because this is what I said on the news. When she asked me that, I said, look, we've had a 370% increase in pursuit or in traffic stops involving human smuggling. We had like a 460% or 470% increase in pursuits involving human smuggling, a 600% increase in fentanyl seizures. I mean, the list goes on and on of the actual hard numbers of the disaster that this border crisis has been under this administration. So yeah, when I say it was a night and day difference, completely different. And this country is now very vulnerable because of the policies, that the indifference or the ignoring of issues that would protect Americans over the last 4 years.
And are you able to numbers to how it's impacted your county, your agency, costs, things like that?
Well, I'm going to go back to what we've done is we've created a really good county here. We've been successfully reducing our crime index over the last several years. The crimes that we're seeing on the rise are crimes that were related to the border stuff. And the drugs, the increase in the drugs and all those things. What we've seen is an increase in fentanyl deaths. We've seen an increase in Narcan distributions, where we're saving people's lives because they're being poisoned by fentanyl. We're certainly feeling.
Do your deputies need to carry Narcan on them?
Oh, we carry a Narcan. We average about 700 Narcan administrations. Well, we respond to about 700 fentanyl poisonings a year. And I think last year we administered well over 300 Narcan administration. So I think that we're probably averaging one a day.
So it's my understanding from friends in law enforcement that since COVID and the defund agenda and the border crisis and the impacts of that the role of law enforcement officers has gotten a whole lot more stressful, from sheriff all the way down to the patrolman. What do you have to do to help keep the morale up amongst your deputies?
Look at what we've done. Our social media, we have the most YouTube followers. We have the second most Facebook. We do it because we're trying to promote this profession. We're trying to show that this is the real. This is really what's going on, where a lot of other agencies are not. They don't want to do that. They don't want to shine the light on themselves. For one, it's natural for a cop to kind of hold information. That's what we do. We don't want to tell the people how close the wolf gets to their doorstep. We're trying to keep people sleeping well at night. And so a lot of times we don't tell the stories. What we've done successfully here is we have really built that out into social media. And where truth is so hard to find, where media and social media and everything the truth is really just sliced and diced. What we've done is try to be a beacon of truth and light for our community and for our state and for the country. And we've been successful in doing that. So I think the answer is we've got to do better on the platforms that are available to us in law enforcement. We've got to do better at just saying to the politicians and the media and the woke mobs and the people that would want to take away freedom. We've got to do a better job of standing up for the people. I was really disappointed during COVID to see how many law enforcement people just fell in line. And I just think that history shows us you can't do that. You've got to stand up in law enforcement and do what is right, no matter what the consequence is. That is what honor is.
People around the country also view crime as one of the biggest problems, whether it's related to the border or not. And we've heard a lot about catch and release programs and cashless bails, things like that. Are you having those problems in Arizona?
Yeah, we're having those problems in Arizona. I can't say we're having them as much in Pinal County. I know, but it's because we have sent a message to our community like, hey, the breaking the law won't be tolerated in this county. We'll protect you, but we won't allow you to break the law either. But we certainly have not been immune from it. Some of our bigger cities in Arizona have certainly felt the rise in crime in this country. And it's because we have turned our backs on law enforcement, and we've sent a message from government that we're not going to hold criminals accountable, and that crime, if you're illegal and certain countries are protected, this is not good. This just sends a very mixed and bad message to people. And I think we're seeing the effects of it on a national level. Certainly in some of our bigger cities, we're feeling it. We've been fortunate enough to hold the line here in our county, but it doesn't mean that we don't have some of that crime. Juvenile crime is up, those types of things, but we're working hard every day to protect our community.
So let's get into a little bit about the 2024 election. Arizona being a battleground state. Can you give the Rally for the Republic listeners a little understanding of the demographics, the voters, what's on their mind?
Arizona is very misleading because we have a Democrat governor. We have a Democrat and an independent senator, and we're hoping that we can maybe take that seat back. I ran for it, hoping that I could, be part of the solution on the federal level, because a lot of these problems with the border and a lot of the problems we're facing in the country have to be fixed at the federal level. So instead of complaining once again, I thought I would throw my hat in the ring. I was unfortunate. I wasn't fortunate enough to win, or I was fortunate enough to lose, however you want to say it. But I didn't make it through the primary. And so I'm not sure how we'll do on the Senate race. The polls are not looking great right now, but they do look good for Trump. I think that President Trump will win Arizona. I started to tell you about Arizona, that it looks blue from the outside, but we actually have more registered Republicans in the state of Arizona. What's happening, though, is we're not giving them candidates that motivate them to get out and vote. And so we're seeing these low voter turnouts. We're seeing people leave, positions blank. They're not filling in the bubbles for certain elected offices. They're not
the undervotes.
They're undervotes.
It's really
and what we're doing, and we also have a very moderate Republican pool, independents, who they're just not. We've got very polarized sides on the left and on the right, and then I think this big floating chunk in the middle that kind of floats back from side to side.
Do you still have McCain Republicans?
Oh, yeah. Look, that's one of the biggest issues. That's what I was just about to say, is we have a lot of folks that are Republicans that really pro-McCain. We have a lot of very pro-Trump. And there's that division. And we haven't been able to bridge that division as much as we would have liked to have. And that's one of the things that I tried to do. And I think I was successful at it. And I think I'd be doing very well if I was still in the race. We're doing everything we can. I'm hoping we get Carrie Lake over the finish line. We get Trump here. I would love to be part of taking the Senate back on a national level because of Arizona. And we need to make sure Arizona may be the deciding factor. Hopefully all the Republicans will get out and vote. And I think that far too many Republicans fall into this notion like, oh, Trump's not a good person. That's not true. I've met him many times. He's a good, God-fearing man who loves America. People don't like his bedside manners or what he says. But I'll tell you what, this man loves freedom. They think that this Kamala is this nice woman. And I can guarantee you, I was listening to Mike Lee from Utah, senator. He goes, if that's what you think, I can tell you story after story that will tell you otherwise. And I think that people have been deceived into thinking that she's somehow a good person or this or that. And look, what we should be doing is voting more for the policies anyway. And the policies of this administration are horrible.
You want to make any predictions about anything related to the election in Arizona or beyond?
Yeah, Trump will win. He should be winning 80-20. That just shows you how divided America is, that she's even remotely close in the polls. I mean, if we're being honest with each other, we've got to start picking people that are going to be capable of doing the job. They are lying when they say that he's going to go in there and do all that and ruin they're the ones that are ruining the republic. We know this in crime. We deal with criminals all the time.
Well, as you know from your prior career in business, right? A businessman goes in, he looks at a problem, he seeks to solve it. He's not interested in obstacles.
And people telegraph what they're actually doing. If they're telling you that he's going to tear it, he's going to ruin it, that means they're already ruining it. They're already tearing it apart. They play the blame game. They always want to say, no, look, it was him over there who did that. These are not leaders. They're not. Their policies are terrible. So I think that the majority of Americans are going to see through this, and I think you're going to see Trump carry the election. I think he's going to win pretty good. And I'm really concerned about our state, our local politics, which really that impacts our daily lives far more than what Washington, D.C. does. So I'm really praying that we can hold the state legislature and the state Senate. I think that.
I understand you're retiring at the end of the year.
Yeah, I am.
So what's the future hold for you?
I had to run for one office or the other, and I chose to run for the Senate. And so I found a good guy, a good constitutional conservative that would run in my place. I'm going to get into the private sector. That's what it's looking like right now. I'm not politics. Unfortunately, people want me to run in politics, and frankly, it's a rich man's profession. We've allowed this as Americans to become a rich man's profession, and then we're mad.
But Kamala's a middle class person.
Yeah. The middle class and the lower class people really have lost the ability. Look, I'm probably an anomaly. I had I'm not a wealthy person, but I had a lot of name recognition. And if I couldn't do it, it's going to be really hard for anybody that's a common person to go in there and win an election, because people can buy their way through the election. And then, frankly, how do you even live off? Our governor, the pay for governor here was $95,000. I think they might have just changed it, but it was $95,000, no governor's mansion. While that may sound like a lot of money to a lot of people, when you're at that level, that's not a lot. You have to go to events all the time. You have clothes you got to wear. You're traveling all the time. That has an impact on your pocketbook. The Senate race about killed me financially. I don't know if I would have gone another couple months, I'd have been in real trouble financially. And so it's just a rich man's profession until we as Americans take that back from the wealthy and the elites of who they're picking who they want right now. And we feel like we have a choice in so many times, but I'll promise you, they're placing exactly who they want into these elections in the general election. And frankly, guys like us, normal folks, are getting washed out of this country.
So I don't know if you've answered this question yet or not, but I like to ask all my guests, what do you think is the greatest threat facing our republic today?
The Democrats. Honestly, their agenda has been an agenda of socialism. But there's so many threats. The border is one of the greatest threats to us physically. Because what's happening is, if you want to talk about the threat to the republic, I think that the policies of the Democrats have been consistently pushing further and further towards socialism. And it sounds really good to Americans on the surface, but in the end, you're giving up. I prefer dangerous liberty to peaceful slavery. I don't want to be a slave. I don't want the government to be higher than God. I don't want the government to dictate what I or my family gets to do, or where I go to school, or what I teach my family. I don't want the government pushing an agenda that says that children can change their gender, all that stuff. That is absolutely destructive to America and the nucleus of the family. Then you have the border. China, to me, what they're not talking to you about, they're talking to you about Venezuelan gangsters, they're talking about MS-13, but what they're not talking about is the Chinese nationals, the military age men that came in, 37,000 in 2022, 23, and then between 23 and 24 is probably 70,000. They don't even want to give you the numbers anymore because they know how awful it looks. And the fact that the Chinese are giving fentanyl to the Americans, or to the cartels, and the cartels are giving it to Americans, we're losing more Americans to fentanyl poisonings. That has become the new terrorism. Without firing a single round or setting off a single bomb, they're managing to kill 100,000 Americans a year. Listen to what I'm saying, people. 100,000 Americans a year are dying at the hands of fentanyl poisonings that the Chinese are given to the cartels. They are not our friends. They are our enemy. And this government does not want to address that. They don't even talk about it. They don't want to hurt their feelings or hurt relationships or affect the money they get for their campaigns that are coming through those Chinese connections. But China is definitely a major threat. We've got street level threats that we've allowed in here because of all the third world people, third world country criminals and different people that we've allowed in here. We've also got a global threat, and America goes, so goes the world. And if we don't get a control of our own country, you're going to see more and more global instability because we're the ones that really dictate that. So we've got just on so many levels where we're at very risk. But our republic, if we don't take this back and put it into the hands of people that are actually going to respect and honor the Constitution, we're going to be in big trouble. And it's God.
Well, Sheriff Lamb, I'm going to tell you something. I think I represent tens of thousands, if not more, Americans who believe that you are a truly rare and special leader. And I hope this is not the last we see of you in elected office.
I appreciate that.
Because we need you. Brian. We need you. The country needs you. You have done some great work. You and I've got to only briefly get acquainted. We met, I think, once or twice in person at a Turning Point event, and have done some work for one of your entities. And you are just a tremendous leader. We don't have leaders like you, and not enough. So I hope you will continue to stay involved. Please keep the Rally for the Republic listeners updated on what you do in the future.
I will. And please come follow me, sherifflamb.com. You can get my books there. I got a bobblehead that's going to go on pre-sale tonight. I've got patches. So if you want to come out there, check me out at sherifflamb.com. We'll sign a book, send it out to you. But thank you for having me on, Bryan. Thank you for the kind words as well. Look, I think people can feel my passion for this country, but I'm also frustrated because I feel like we're losing something that our founding fathers and so many great men and women were so courageous and honorable to give everything up that they had so that we could have freedom. They didn't get the freedom that they fought for. Many of them died because of their fight for the freedom, and then or stripped of whatever they had. We have been the benefactors of it. We cannot continue to eat the bread of our children and our grandchildren, and we cannot throw away the honor of those courageous men and women who fought to give us the freedom and just let it go by the wayside. So thank you for having me on. God bless everybody. Fight for this country. It is worth fighting for, and this is the Alamo of freedom. If we lose it here, there's nowhere else to go find it. So it's an honor to stand shoulder to shoulder with people that are willing to speak out and fight for this country and our republic.
Well, thank you, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County, Arizona. I thank you for joining us in Rally for the Republic. It's been my honor to host you here. I thank the Rally for the Republic listeners for tuning in. Sheriff Lamb, when you and I met at Mar-a-Lago at a Turning Point event, I actually came as a guest of my friend Bob Rubin. So he's sponsoring today's episode. And he's America's foremost politically conservative wealth advisor. And he's trying to help conservatives make sure they avoid investing in companies that support DEI.
Good.
So for folks who want to talk to Bob and figure out how to do what he's doing, they should go to RubinWA.com and schedule a call with him. That's Bob Rubin at RubinWA.com. Thank you again, Sheriff Lamb. Thank you again to everybody who's listened to this episode of Rally for the Republic. Heed the words of Sheriff Lamb. Make sure you vote early, and let's take back our country together. God bless.
God bless you.
Thank you for joining us on Rally for the Republic, where we are fighting for America's future. Visit 1776coalition.com. Rally for the Republic podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and download. Join Bryan Rudnick next time as we continue to fight for the American way of life and challenge the hypocrisy. This is Rally for the Republic.